Professor Kim Daeon walked into his classroom that Monday morning feeling nervous. In 15 years of teaching at Seoul National University, he had never hosted an alien student before. Today would be different. Today Yuki would arrive. Morning sun came through the tall windows of the biology building. Students were already sitting in their seats, talking quietly among themselves. Park Min-ho sat in the front row, as always. He was one of the best students in the class. Behind him, Lee Soo-jin was reading her textbook. She always came prepared for every lesson. Choi Hyun-woo entered the room just before class started. He was often late, but never missed a class. He took his usual seat near the window and looked outside at the campus trees. The leaves were turning yellow and orange. Fall was coming to Seoul. Professor Kim put his coffee cup on his desk and looked at his watch. 9 o'clock exactly. Cleared his throat to get the students' attention. "Good morning, everyone," he said. "Today is a special day for our xenobiology class." The students looked up from their books and phones. They knew something important was happening. The professor had told them last week about the exchange program with the Galactic Council. Earth had just joined the galactic community 2 years ago. This was still new and exciting for everyone. "Our exchange student will arrive in a few minutes," Professor Kim continued. "Her name is Yuki. She comes from a planet called Valeria. Her species is very different from humans." Park Min-ho raised his hand. "Professor, what do they look like?" "You will see soon," Professor Kim smiled. "But I want everyone to remember something important. Yuki is here to learn about Earth and humans. We must be respectful and kind." "Is a great honor for our university?" Lee Soo-jin asked. "Can she speak Korean?" "She has a translation device," the professor explained. "She can understand us, and we can understand her. But her species does not communicate the same way we do. They use sound vibrations and frequencies." The classroom door opened. Dean Park entered with a tall figure behind him. The students went completely silent. They had never seen anything like this before. Yuki stepped into the room. She was 7 feet tall, with skin that looked like blue crystal. Her body seemed to be made of clear glass, with water moving inside. Light passed through her and created small rainbows on the walls. She had no hair and no clothes, but her body was not like a human body. It was smooth and flowing like liquid that had been frozen into the shape of a person. Her face was gentle, with large silver eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When she moved, her skin made a soft musical sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Students," Dean Park said, "please welcome Yuki from Valeria." The students were too amazed to speak at first. Then Park Min-ho started clapping, and the others joined in. Yuki's crystal body began to glow with a soft blue light. The professor realized this must be her way of showing pleasure or thanks. "Thank you," Yuki said. Her voice came from a small device around her neck. It sounded like bells ringing underwater. "I am honored to be here." Dean Park left the room, and Professor Kim gestured to an empty seat in the front row. "Please, Yuki, sit. Wherever you feel comfortable." Yuki moved carefully to the seat next to Park Min-ho. The chair creaked a little under her weight. She was heavier than she looked. Park Min-ho smiled at her, and she tilted her head like she was trying to understand what the smile meant. "We will talk about life on different planets," Professor Kim began. "Yuki, would you like to tell us about Valeria?" Yuki stood up. Her crystal skin caught the sunlight and filled the room with dancing blue lights. "Valeria is a world of crystal caves and singing stones. My people live in harmony with the planet's natural frequencies. We do not have what you call animals. All life on Valeria is connected through sound and vibration." Choi Hyun-woo raised his hand. "Do you have families?" "Have harmony groups," Yuki explained. "Beings who share the same frequency patterns. We come together to create complex songs that help our world grow and heal. But we do not have the individual bonds that humans seem to value." Lee Soo-jin looked confused. "You don't have friends?" Yuki paused. Her translation device made small, clicking sounds as it worked to find the right words. "The concept of friendship is difficult for me to understand." My species works together for the benefit of all. We do not form special connections with individuals. Professor Kim nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. Most galactic species were very different from humans in this way. Humans were unusual in how they formed close personal relationships. That's very interesting, Yuki, he said. This week, we will be studying the relationships between different species on Earth. I think you will find it quite different from Valeria. The class continued with Professor Kim explaining how Earth had thousands of different animal species. Yuki listened carefully and took notes on a device that looked like a sheet of flexible glass. Her silver eyes watched every student as they talked about their pets and favorite animals. When Han Juan mentioned her cat, Yuki asked, "What is the purpose of keeping these creatures in your home?" "They're companions," Han Juan explained. "They make us happy." "But what work do they do for you?" The students laughed gently. Nam Tajan tried to explain. "They don't work. We take care of them because we love them. They love us back." Yuki's crystal form flickered with confusion. Love without purpose. This is strange to me. Professor Kim could see that Yuki was struggling to understand human emotions. Her species was highly intelligent but very logical. They had no experience with the kind of emotional bonds that humans took for granted. "Don't worry, Yuki," he said kindly. "By the end of this week, I think you will understand better. Tomorrow, I will bring a special guest to class, someone who can show you exactly what we mean by companionship and love." Yuki's skin glowed brighter with curiosity. "What kind of special guest?" Professor Kim smiled. "My dog Bori, he's been my companion for 8 years. I think meeting him will help you understand what makes Earth's relationships so special." The other students looked excited. They all loved Professor Kim's dog from the pictures he showed them. Bori was a golden retriever, with a friendly face and a tail that never stopped wagging. "YUK," I made a note on her glass device. "I will prepare questions about this dog creature. I am very interested to observe this relationship you describe." As the class ended, students gathered around Yuki to ask more questions about her world. She answered patiently, her crystal skin creating beautiful patterns of light as she spoke. But Professor Kim could see that she was thinking deeply about what she had learned today. None of them knew that tomorrow's simple demonstration would change everything. Not just for Yuki, but for the entire galaxy. Tuesday morning came with bright sunshine and a cool breeze. Professor Kim Dae-yoon walked across the campus with his golden retriever Bori trotting happily beside him. Bori's tail wagged back and forth as he looked at everything around him. Trees, the birds, the students walking to class. Everything was interesting to Bori. "Today is a big day, boy," Professor Kim said softly to his dog. "You're going to meet someone very special." Bori looked up at his human with warm brown eyes and wagged his tail even faster. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the kind tone. That was enough for him. In the classroom, students were arriving early.
Yes.
Everyone wanted to see Bori Park. Minho had brought his camera to take pictures.
Hey.
Lee Soo-jin had dog treats in her bag, even though Professor Kim had told them not to feed Bori without permission. YUK sat in her usual seat in the front row. Her crystal body was glowing with a steady blue light. She had spent all night reading about Earth animals on the galactic database. The information was confusing to her. Why would intelligent beings choose to care for creatures that gave nothing useful in return? Choi Hoon-wo looked out the window and saw Professor Kim walking toward the building. "He's coming," he announced to the class. The students became quiet with excitement. Yuki's silver eyes focused on the door. Her crystal skin began to vibrate slightly, making a soft humming sound. This was how her species showed nervousness or intense curiosity. The classroom door opened. Professor Kim stepped inside, and immediately after him came Bori. The golden retriever bounded into the room with pure joy. His tail was wagging so hard that his whole body moved from side to side. The human students immediately relaxed and smiled. Several of them made soft cooing sounds. Han Juan clasped her hands together and whispered, "He's so cute." Yuki watched. All of this was scientific interest. Humans' behavior had changed completely. Their faces became softer. Their voices became higher and gentler. Even their body positions changed as they leaned forward with open arms. Bori looked around the room at all the faces looking at him. He was not afraid or worried. Instead, his tail wagged even more. He seemed to understand that all these people were friendly. "Good morning, everyone," Professor Kim said. "This is Bori. He's 8 years old and he's been my companion since he was a puppy." Bori sat next to the professor's desk, but his eyes kept moving around the room. He was interested in all the new people, especially the tall blue figure in the front row. "Yuki," Professor Kim said, "this is the companion I told you about yesterday." Yuki leaned forward in her seat. Her crystal form began to glow brighter as she studied Bori carefully. "He is smaller than I expected," she said through her translation device. "And he appears to have fur covering his skin." Professor Kim laughed. "Dogs have fur to keep them warm." "Bori, this is Yuki. She's visiting us from another planet." Bori tilted his head and looked at Yuki with curious eyes. He had never seen anything like her before, but he was not afraid. Dogs are very good at sensing the feelings of others. Even though Yuki looked completely different, Bori could tell she was not dangerous.
Ow!
Professor Kim continued. Let me show you what makes the relationship between humans and dogs so special." He walked to the other side of the room.
Oh.
Bori watched him, but stayed sitting where he was. "Bori, come," Professor Kim called. Immediately, Bori got up and ran to his human. His tail wagged the whole way. When he reached Professor Kim, he sat down and looked up at him with love and attention. The students clapped softly. They had seen this many times before, but it still made them happy. "YUKI made notes on her glass device. The creature obeys commands. This suggests a hierarchy relationship." "Not exactly," Professor Kim said. "Watch this." He sat down on the floor and opened his arms. "Bori, come here, boy." Bori immediately ran to Professor Kim and began licking his face. The professor laughed and hugged the dog gently. Bori's tail wagged so hard it made thumping sounds on the floor. "See," Professor Kim explained while Bori continued to shower him with affection. "This is not about obedience. It's about love. Bori doesn't have to do this. He wants to do this." Yuki's crystal skin began to flicker with different colors. This was her species' way of showing confusion. But what does he gain from this behavior? Nam Tajan raised his hand. "He gains happiness, just like Professor Kim gains happiness." "But happiness serves no logical purpose," Yuki said. Park Minho tried to explain. "It doesn't have to serve a purpose, it just feels good." Yuki stood up slowly. Her 7-foot frame cast dancing blue lights on the ceiling. "I observed this creature more closely." "Of course," Professor Kim said. "Bori's very friendly, but moves slowly." To you, Yuki walked carefully toward the center of the room. Her crystal feet made soft musical sounds on the floor. Bori watched her approach with interest, but no fear. "Hello, Bori," Yuki said through her translation device. Her voice was still like underwater bells, but somehow gentler than before. Bori's ears perked up. He could hear something in her voice. That was different from yesterday, something warmer. "Why?" Yuki knelt down slowly, bringing her tall form closer to Bori's level. The dog took a few steps toward her, his tail wagging gently. "He's not afraid of me," Yuki observed with surprise. "Dogs are very good at reading emotions," Professor Kim explained. "He can tell you're being kind." Yuki reached out one crystalline hand toward Bori. The dog sniffed it carefully. Her hand was cool and smooth, nothing like human skin. But there was something else, something that Bori's sensitive nose could detect. Underneath the strange crystal scent was something familiar, something that felt like curiosity and gentleness. Bori looked up at Yuki's silver eyes. For a moment they just looked at each other. The alien from a world of crystal caves and singing stones, and the dog from Earth who knew only love and loyalty. Then something magical happened. Bori stepped closer and gently licked Yuki's crystal hand. The moment his warm tongue touched her, cool skin, Yuki's entire body erupted in golden light. The blue crystal became warm amber, like sunlight through honey. Her usual steady humming became a harmony of beautiful sounds. Every student in the room gasped. Even Professor Kim stepped back in amazement. "Why, Yuki? I had never felt anything like this before." In her world, emotions were shared among many beings, creating complex patterns of logic and purpose. But this was different. This was simple and pure, and directed entirely at her. Not because she was useful or logical or part of a greater plan, simply because she existed and was being kind. For the first time in her species' history, one of her kind experienced what humans call unconditional love. And in that moment, everything changed. That evening, Yuki sat alone in her small apartment near the university. The golden glow in her crystal body had faded to a soft, warm light, but it had not disappeared completely. She could still feel something new inside her chest, like a gentle fire that would not go out. She had never experienced anything like this before. On Valeria, emotions were shared equally among all members of her Harmony group. They were logical and purposeful, designed to help the community work together. But this feeling was different, belonged only to her, and it had no logical purpose. At all UK, I touched the spot on her hand where Bori had licked her. The crystal was still slightly warmer than the rest of her body. She could remember exactly how the dog's tongue had felt. Warm and wet and gentle. She could remember his brown eyes looking at her with simple kindness. Her communication device beeped softly. It was time for her daily report to the Galactic Council. Every exchange student had to send a report about what they learned each day. Usually, Yuki's reports were short and scientific. She activated the holographic transmitter in her room. A blue beam of light appeared, connecting her to the council chambers on the distant planet Andromeda Prime. The faces of 3 council members appeared in the light. Exchange student Yuki, said Council Member Vex. His voice was cold and electronic. The Andromedan Republic had no emotions at all. They had removed them thousands of years ago because they believed emotions made beings weak and stupid. Greetings, Council Member Vex, Yuki replied. Her translation device made her voice sound normal, but inside she felt nervous. That was new too. She had never felt nervous about giving reports before. Please provide your daily observation report, said Council Member Zara from the Silicon Confederacy. Her species was made of living metal and spoke in mathematical equations. Today I observed a demonstration of human-animal bonding, Yuki began. Her crystal form flickered slightly. The professor brought a creature called a dog to the classroom. Standard. Procedure, noted Council Member Brix from the Logical Federation. What did you learn about human domestication practices? Yuki paused. How could she explain what had happened? How could she describe feelings that had no words in any galactic language? The interaction was unlike anything in our databases, she said slowly. The creature showed what humans call affection toward me, without any prior relationship or benefit exchange. The 3 council members looked at each other through their holographic connection. This was not the kind of report they usually received. Explain affection, Council Member Vex demanded. The creature performed a physical gesture of kindness. It licked my hand. When this happened, I experienced something the humans call emotional resonance. The temperature in the council chambers seemed to drop. Council Member Zara's metal face showed alarm calculations. You experienced emotional response from contact with a non-sentient Earth creature? She asked. Yes, Yuki said, brighter as she remembered the moment. The feeling was warm and protective. I wanted to keep the creature safe, even though it served no purpose for my mission or my species. Council Member Brix stood up from his chair. Species had eliminated all emotions after a great war nearly destroyed their planet. To them, emotions were the most dangerous force in the universe. Student Yuki, you are describing impossible phenomena. Your species has psychic barriers that prevent emotional contamination from other beings. The barriers did not work, Yuki said simply. The creature's emotional state somehow penetrated my natural defenses. I felt what humans call joy, and I felt it directed specifically at me. The 3 council members began speaking rapidly too, each other in languages Yuki could not understand. She could see fear in their faces, even though most of their species claimed not to have fear. This is a Code 7 situation, Council Member Vex announced. Yuki, you will return to Valeria immediately for medical examination. But I am not sick, Yuki protested. I feel perfectly healthy. In fact, I feel better than I have ever felt before. That is exactly the problem, Council Member Zara said. Her metal voice was shaking. Humans can create emotional bonds that override psychic barriers. They possess weaponized empathy capabilities. Yuki's crystal form began to pulse with confusion. Weapon. The dog was not a weapon. It was gentle and kind. You do not understand, Council Member Bricks said. If a simple Earth creature can make you feel protective emotions without any logical reason, what could humans do to entire populations? They could make our people abandon their duties, their logic, their purpose. But that would not be a bad thing, Yuki said without thinking. The words came out before she could stop them. The silence in the council chambers was complete. 3 members stared at her through the hologram with expressions of pure horror. Student Yuki, Council Member Vex said in a voice like ice, you have been compromised. You are no longer thinking logically. This proves that humans are extremely dangerous. They're not dangerous, Yuki insisted. Her golden glow became brighter. They are wonderful. The feeling I experienced today was beautiful. It made me want to protect and care for another being simply because that being existed. Is that not miraculous? Councilmember Zara began typing rapidly on her metal fingers. Emergency classification change required. Earth must be reclassified immediately. What classification? Yuki asked, though she was beginning to understand that something terrible was happening. Psychological hazard, Councilmember Bricks announced. Containment Protocol 7. No further contact with Earth or its inhabitants until we can determine the extent of their emotional manipulation abilities. No, Yuki said, standing up so quickly that her crystal body sent light dancing around the room. You do not understand. They are not manipulating anyone. They're sharing something precious. Love is not a weapon. Love, Councilmember Vex repeated the word like it tasted bitter. That is an ancient concept that destroyed civilizations. We eliminated it for good reason. Then you eliminated something beautiful, Yuki said. And her voice was filled with a sadness that surprised even her. The hologram connection ended abruptly. Yuki stood alone in her room, glowing with warm golden light in the darkness. Across the galaxy, emergency messages were being sent to every member of the Galactic Council. Earth's classification was being changed from developing civilization moderate interest to psychological hazard, containment recommended. All because a dog had wagged his tail and licked the hand of a lonely alien student. All because for one perfect moment, someone had felt unconditional love for the first time, and now the entire galaxy was afraid of that beautiful, terrible power. Ambassador Chen Miyong was sleeping peacefully in her apartment in Seoul when her emergency communication device began screaming at 3 in the morning. The sound was designed to wake anyone, even in the deepest sleep. It meant that something very serious was happening in space. She rolled out of bed and pressed the answer button with shaking hands. The holographic face of Director Williams from the Global Space Command appeared in her bedroom. Chen, we have a situation, he said. His face looked tired and worried. Earth's galactic classification has been changed. Changed to what? Chen asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Psychological hazard. Containment Protocol 7 is now in effect. Chen felt her heart stop. She had studied galactic law for 10 years. She knew what those words meant. Earth was now considered too dangerous for normal contact with other civilizations. That's impossible, she said. What could have happened? We haven't done anything aggressive. We haven't even left our own solar system yet. That's what we need to figure out, Director Williams said. Get to the embassy immediately. The Galactic Council is demanding answers. 1 hour later, Chen sat in the emergency command center beneath the Seoul Space Embassy. Screens all around her showed news reports from across the galaxy. Every major civilization was talking about Earth's new dangerous status. The headlines made no sense to her. Humans possess weaponized empathy. Earth species capable of psychic manipulation. Emotional warfare discovered on Sol 3. This has to be a mistake, she said to Director Kim, who had arrived from the Ministry of Science. We don't have any psychic weapons? We barely have space travel. The reports are all coming from the same source, Director Kim said, reading from his tablet. A Valerian exchange student named Uki. She filed a report yesterday about something that happened at Seoul National University. Chen felt a cold feeling in her stomach. What kind of something? Apparently, she had an emotional response to contact with a dog. A dog? Chen repeated. This whole crisis is about a dog, according to the Galactic Council. Yes. They believe that if our animals can affect alien emotions, then humans must have developed emotional manipulation as a weapon. Chen put her head in her hands. This is insane. Dogs are friendly to everyone. That's just what they do. Her communication device buzzed. A message from the Galactic Council was coming through on the official diplomatic channel. Chen opened it and read aloud. To the government of Earth, your planet has been reclassified as a psychological hazard under Galactic Security Code 7. All trade agreements are suspended. All cultural exchange programs are terminated. All diplomatic contact is limited. 2. Emergency communications only. This classification will remain in effect until the Galactic Council can determine the extent of your species' emotional warfare capabilities. Director Kim sat down heavily in his chair. 17 different civilizations have filed formal complaints against us. They're calling it psychic contamination. Chen scrolled through the list of complaints on her screen. The Zephyrian hegemony claimed that humans could corrupt pure logical thought. The Silicon Confederacy was worried about viral empathy infections. The Crystalline Collective demanded protective shields against human emotional manipulation. They're all afraid of the same thing, she realized. They think we can make them feel emotions they don't want to feel. Maybe we should talk to this Professor Kim, Director Kim suggested. He was the one with the dog. 2 hours later, Professor Kim Dae-yoon sat in the embassy conference room with Bori, sleeping quietly at his feet. The golden retriever had no idea that he had accidentally started an intergalactic crisis. He was just happy to be with his favorite human. I don't understand what went wrong, Professor Kim said for the 5th time. It was just a normal class demonstration. Bori behaved perfectly. He was gentle and friendly, just like always. Tell us exactly what happened when Yuki met Bori, Ambassador Chen said. Professor Kim thought carefully. Yuki approached slowly. She seemed curious but nervous. Bori could sense that she was being kind, so he went to her. When she put out her hand, he licked it. That's when everything changed. Changed how? Her whole body started glowing with golden light instead of blue. She made these beautiful musical sounds. The student said later that she looked happier than they had ever seen any alien look. Ambassador Chen and Director Kim looked at each other. So a friendly dog made an alien happy, and now the entire galaxy thinks we're dangerous, Director. Kim said slowly. It seems that way, Professor Kim agreed. But I don't understand why that would be scary. Ambassador Chen sighed. Because most galactic civilizations don't have emotions like we do. They see them as weaknesses or dangerous. Forces that can destroy logic and order. She turned to her computer and pulled up files about the major galactic powers. Get this. The Andromedan Republic removed all emotions from their species thousands of years ago. The Silicon Confederacy are artificial beings who see emotions as computer viruses. The Logical Federation believes emotions caused most wars in galactic history. But emotions also cause most of the good things in life, Professor Kim said. Love, friendship, compassion, joy. Without those, what's the point of living? That's exactly what they're afraid of, Ambassador Chen realized. They've built their entire civilizations on the idea that emotions are bad. If humans can prove that emotions are actually good, it threatens everything they believe. In his sleep, Bori's tail wagged slightly. He was dreaming about playing in the park with his favorite human. What do we do now? Professor Kim asked. Ambassador. Chen looked at the sleeping dog who had accidentally terrified an entire galaxy. I don't know. We need to find a way to show them that love isn't a weapon. It's a gift. Outside the embassy, news crews from around the world were gathering. The story was spreading on Earth too. Local dog causes galactic diplomatic crisis was trending on social media. But inside the embassy, 3 humans and 1 golden retriever sat quietly, trying to figure out how to save their planet's reputation. All because someone had experienced unconditional love for the first time, and the galaxy wasn't ready for it. The great assembly hall on Andromeda Prime had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from 47 different civilizations had gathered for an emergency session. The topic was simple but terrifying: what to do about the Humans' Council. Leader Vex stood at the center of the massive chamber. His cold metal voice echoed off the crystal walls as he called the session to order. "We are here to address the threat posed by the species known as humans from the planet Earth," he announced. "Evidence suggests they possess dangerous emotional manipulation abilities." In the viewing gallery above, Yuki sat with her assigned guardian. She was no longer glowing with golden light. The medical treatments on Valeria had tried to remove the strange new feelings from her system, but they had not been completely successful. Deep inside her crystal chest, she could still feel a warm spot where the memory of Bori's kindness lived. "The first witness will present evidence." Council Leader Vex said. Ambassador Thrix from the Zephyrian hegemony floated to the center of the chamber. His species looked like clouds of purple gas with glowing eyes. They prided themselves on pure, logical thought, fellow beings, Thrix said in a voice like wind through caves. "I have studied the human reports. Their ability to corrupt rational thinking is beyond anything we have seen. They can make logical beings abandon their duties for the sake of irrational attachment." Murmurs of fear rippled through the assembly. Representative Klon from the machine Collective raised one of his metal arms. "How do they accomplish this manipulation?" he asked in a voice made of electronic beeps. "They use creatures called pets," Thrix explained. "These animals have been modified over thousands of years to produce maximum emotional response. They are living weapons designed to break down mental defenses." Yuki wanted to stand up and shout that this was wrong. Bori was not a weapon. He was just a happy dog who loved everyone he met. But her guardian placed a restraining hand on her arm. The next witness was Professor Zex from the Academy of Pure Thought. His species had large brains and no bodies at all. They existed as floating consciousness in glass containers. "I have analyzed the emotional patterns described in the Valerian student's report," he said. "The human animal produced what they call unconditional positive regard. This is extremely dangerous because it requires no logical justification." "Explain," demanded Council Leader Vex. "The creature showed affection without any reason. It did not know the Valerian. It had never met her before. It gained nothing from the interaction. Yet it still displayed protective and caring behaviors. This suggests humans have weaponized irrationality itself." More fearful whispers filled the chamber. Representative Quinn from the Order of Absolute Logic stood up. Her species looked like living mathematics, with numbers and equations flowing. Across their transparent bodies, humans can make beings care about things for no logical reason. She said they could destroy the foundation of civilized society. Order depends on rational decision-making. Love without purpose is chaos. Yuki could not stay quiet any longer. She stood up despite her guardian's attempts to stop her. "You are all wrong," she called out. Her translation device made her voice ring clearly through the chamber. The feeling was not chaos. It was beautiful. The entire assembly turned to look at her. 47 different species focused their attention on the young Valerian who had started this crisis. "Student Yuki," Council Leader Vex said coldly, "you have been medically treated for emotional contamination. Your testimony is not reliable." "Treatments did not work completely," Yuki said, and her crystal form began to glow softly. "I still remember what it felt like when Bori showed me kindness. It was not manipulation. It was a gift." She walked down to the center of the chamber, her crystal feet making musical sounds on the metal floor. "The dog did not want anything from me," she continued. "He did not expect payment or service or logical exchange. He simply sensed that I was trying to be kind, and he responded with kindness. Is that not wonderful?" "It is terrifying," said Ambassador Yan from the Collective of Pure Reason. "Kindness without purpose leads to weakness. Beings who care about others more than themselves cannot function in an ordered society." "But they can," Yuki insisted. "I watched the humans in the classroom. They cared deeply about each other and about their animal companions. Yet they still work together, still learn and grow and create beautiful things. Their emotions make them stronger, not weaker." Representative Mars from the Logical Federation shook his geometric head. Impossible. Our records show that emotions caused the great wars that nearly destroyed half the galaxy. We eliminated them to prevent future disasters. Maybe you eliminated the wrong thing, Yuki said quietly. Maybe the problem was not emotions themselves, but not understanding how to use them properly. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several species demanded that Yuki be removed for spreading dangerous ideas. Others called for immediate military action against Earth. Through it all, Yuki stood in the center of the chamber, glowing with soft golden light. She thought about Bori's warm brown eyes and wagging tail. She thought about Professor Kim's gentle smile, and the way the human students had looked at the dog with such pure affection. You can classify Earth as dangerous if you want, she said when the shouting died down. You can build walls and barriers and forbid contact, but you cannot change what I experienced. For one perfect moment, I felt what it was like to be loved, simply because I existed, and that feeling was not a weapon, it was a miracle. Council leader Vex stood up. His metal face showed no expression, but his voice was filled with cold authority. The classification will stand, he announced. Earth remains a psychological hazard. All contact is forbidden until further notice. As the assembly dissolved into chaos, Yuki was led away by her guardian, but she was not sad. She was thinking about a golden retriever who had changed the galaxy without even knowing it, and somewhere on Earth, Bori was sleeping peacefully in his favorite spot by Professor Kim's desk, dreaming of new friends to meet and hands to lick. 3 months had passed since Earth was labeled a dangerous planet. Professor Kim Daeon continued teaching his classes, but something had changed. His students were quieter now. They knew that their world was alone in the galaxy, cut off from the community of civilizations they had hoped to join. The exchange program was over. Yuki had been taken back to Valeria for more medical treatments. No other alien students would be coming to Earth. The dreams of learning about other worlds and sharing human culture seemed very far away now. But on this crisp autumn morning, something unexpected was about to happen. Professor Kim was preparing for his xenobiology class when his communication device buzzed. A message from the Global Space Embassy appeared on his screen. Professor Kim, please report to Seoul Space Command immediately. Bring Bori. He looked down at his golden retriever, who was sleeping in his usual spot by the desk. What do you think, boy? Are we in more trouble? Bori's tail wagged hopefully. He always enjoyed car rides, especially when they led to meeting new people at the Space Command building. Ambassador Chen Myong met them at the entrance. She looked nervous, but also excited. We've received an unusual request, she explained as they walked through the security checkpoints. A being called Council Observer Zen has asked for direct contact with Earth. Professor Kim stopped walking. But I thought all contact was forbidden. It is, Chen said. But Observer Zen is different. It's not from any of the major galactic powers. His species, the Luminous Collective, rarely gets involved in council politics. But when they do speak, everyone listens. They entered a large room with white walls and bright lights. In the center was a strange device that looked like a crystal tree with silver branches. Ambassador Chen explained that it was a communication portal, specially built for this meeting. Observer Zen is a being of pure energy, she said. He doesn't have a physical body like we do. He exists as conscious light. Is that safe? Professor Kim asked, instinctively moving closer to Bori. We think so. His species is known for being peaceful and wise. But Professor Kim, you should know that this meeting could determine Earth's future. Observer Zen decides we really are dangerous. The isolation could become permanent. Professor Kim nodded. What does he want to see? He wants to meet the dog that started all this trouble. The crystal tree began to glow. Soft music filled the room, like wind chimes mixed with distant singing. The silver branches pulsed with gentle light that grew brighter and brighter. Then, in the space above the device, a figure began to form. Observer Zen looked like a tall human made of warm golden light. His face was kind and ancient, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of stars. Greetings, beings of Earth, he said. His voice sounded like sunlight would sound if it could speak. I am Observer Zen of the Luminous Collective. Professor Kim bowed politely. Welcome to Earth, Observer Zen. I am Professor Kim, and this is Bori. At the sound of his name, Bori looked up from where he had been sniffing an interesting corner of the room. He saw the glowing figure and tilted his head curiously. The dog had never seen anything like this before, but he sensed no danger, only kindness. Observer Zen knelt down, his energy form flickering with interest. So this is the creature that has terrified the galaxy. Bori approached slowly, his tail wagging gently. He could feel something special about this visitor. The golden light reminded him of warm summer afternoons and the feeling of being loved. He's not terrifying at all, Professor Kim said. He's just a friendly dog who loves everyone he meets. Yes, Observer Zen said softly. I can see that. Bori came close enough to sniff at the energy being, where his nose touched the light. Small sparkles appeared, like tiny stars being born. Observer Zen's form grew brighter with wonder. Remarkable, the observer whispered. He has no fear of the unknown. No suspicion of things that are different. Only curiosity and openness. Bori sat down in front of Observer Zen and looked up at him with those warm brown eyes that had started everything. The dog's tail wagged in a slow, friendly rhythm. May I? Observer Zen asked, reaching out with one glowing hand. He would like that, Professor Kim said. Observer Zen gently touched the top of Bori's head. The moment their energies connected, something beautiful happened. The observer's golden light merged with the dog's simple happiness, creating patterns of pure joy that danced around the room. For several minutes they stayed like that, ancient being of infinite wisdom, and a golden retriever who knew only love, sharing a moment of perfect connection. Finally, Observer Zen stood up. His light was brighter now, more complex and beautiful than before. I understand now, he said to Professor Kim. The Galactic Council is afraid because they see your emotions as weapons, but they are wrong. They are. Ambassador Chen asked hopefully. Completely wrong, Observer Zen confirmed. What you call love is not a weapon at all. It is the most powerful creative force in the universe. But the Council species eliminated it from themselves so long ago that they have forgotten its true nature. He looked down at Bori, who was now lying peacefully at Professor Kim's feet. This creature does not manipulate emotions, Observer Zen continued. He shares them freely, without asking for anything in return. That is not dangerous. That is sacred. Observer Zen's form began to change, becoming more solid and defined. Professor Kim, would it be possible for me to spend more time with Bori? I would like to learn more about this gift your species possesses. Professor Kim smiled. Bori would love that. He enjoys meeting new friends. Then with your permission, I will remain on Earth as a cultural observer, and I will send my report to the Galactic Council explaining what I have discovered here. Over the following weeks, Observer Zen spent his days at the university, watching humans interact with their animal companions. He observed students playing with dogs in the campus park. He watched Professor Kim's gentle care of Bori. He saw the pure joy on children's faces when they met friendly animals. His final report to the Galactic Council was very different from what they expected. Fellow beings, he wrote, I have observed the humans closely. They do not possess weaponized emotions. They possess something far more valuable, the ability to love without conditions or expectations. This is not a threat to galactic civilization. It is exactly what galactic civilization needs to heal the wounds left by centuries of purely logical thinking. I recommend that Earth's classification be changed immediately. Instead of psychological hazard, it should be designated as unique. Cultural asset approach with wonder. Humans and their animal companions have something to teach us about the joy of simply existing. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to remember what we gave up when we chose logic over love. 6 months later, the isolation ended. Earth received its first official delegation from the Galactic Council. They came not as conquerors or judges, but as students, hoping to learn about the mysterious force called unconditional love. And at the center of it all was Bori, a golden retriever who had accidentally changed the galaxy simply by being himself. He still didn't understand what all the fuss was about, He was just happy to have so many new friends to meet. The mayor of Seoul gave him a special medal that read, Earth's First Four-Legged Diplomat. Bori was more interested in the treats that came with the ceremony, but he wore the medal proudly when Professor Kim asked him to. After all, making friends was what he did best.